Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So we've got an update, still the same update but a fixed update for the NB4 Pro Plus. Now if you remember, when we restored as model memories on the 1011 update, it broke the steering, so we've got no steering on the models that were already preset. If you reset it and set it up again, it worked. But we should have a fix for this, and I'll just run you through the steps of what I'm going to do with mine, and show you how to get this update on, see if we can get it working properly. So let's bring in for a close-up look and see if we fare any better with this one. So first thing I'm going to do for this one is just remove the battery base and put the little USB-C clip on from SourceSky. This is just so it makes it easier for me to plug the USB in and have it similar sort of distance for the actual screen on the Lenovo Legion Go, so you can see what I'm doing. But basically we're gonna start by connecting up our transmitter, and you can use the stock base if you want. We're just going to plug that into USB-C and sit it around there, so you should be able to see what's going off on the screen on both. Right, let's get us zoomed in and I'll run you through what we need to do. So first thing you're going to want to do is get your USB cable connected to your Pro Plus, and then we're going to go to flysky-cn.com. We're going to go on products, and then we want Surface, and then you go to the NB4 Pro Plus. We come across to downloads and upgrades, and I will drop a link in description. So looking through this, we can see we've got EU and EN firmware. The version number is 1011, but we do have a release date of the 16th of the 4th. So we've got FCC firmware and standard firmware, and as I always get asked this, standard is normal transmission power, so normal advertised range and good battery life. If you want extended range, you can use the FCC firmware, but it does run the battery down slightly quicker. For me, I'm going to use the standard. First off, you want to download yourself the latest version of Assistant V3. So this is 3.3.5. I've done videos on how to download and install this, and you do have it for Mac and Windows. So you want to download that, get that installed. Then I've created myself a little folder. So I've gone Desktop, Assistant V3, NB4 Pro Plus, and this is the backup from last time. Just handy to create this folder, because then you keep all the stuff for your transmitter where it should be. And then on your transmitter, if you go into your system menu, come all the way to the bottom, you can go to about, and you can see this is the EU version. If you have an EN version, you download the EN version of that firmware. So I'm going to download the EU standard, because that's what I run. So it'll quickly ask you where you want to put it. So my Assistant folder, my Pro Plus folder, and then download. That'll quickly download the software for us. You can also download the Assistant, whichever version, Mac or Windows, and install that. So if we check, we've got the update. That's the latest version of it. So we want to open Flysky Assistant. And thank God this is a hell of a lot quicker than it used to be. So you'll see it'll detect the transmitter. We can click into as transmitter. We can go to export, load as model memories. So we need to select all as model memories. If you click here, you can get to the next lot as well. Click export, and then for me, I'm going to browse back to my desktop, my Assistant folder, my NB4 Pro Plus folder, and for this, I'm just going to slightly change it So let's bring up keyboard on this. I'm just going to name this EU new, just so I can have this backup and the backup that we made before this firmware. I'm just curious to see if the issue lies in the actual model memories or if it's just in the firmware. So I'm going to try restoring not only this backup that we've made, but also the backup I made previous to this version that had the issue. I just want to see if we can run through and make a backup of the model memories even though the steering doesn't work and the new firmware fixes that, or if we're going to have to use the previous memories that we made from trying to update this to the original release of 1011. And as I've said before, I don't like to skip these bits. You can fast forward, jump through to something a little bit more interesting. Just a bit curious, as the only transmitter out of the whole range, so the NB4, the 4 Plus, the Pro and the Pro Plus, the only one that had this weird steering glitch was the actual Pro Plus, which I find bizarre. All the others worked absolutely fine. And I have done the software update on the G11P as well. I'm running a test version on that. That works fine. I did the G7P and that was also fine with its model memories. So just a little bit curious that the only one that seemed to be affected was the flagship. Bit unfortunate, but be interesting to see if it's actually corrupted the model memories or if we can still restore the same model memories that we're now backing up. Kind of hoping it hasn't, because it's easier to restore these because you've still got them on your transmitter. I know some people might have deleted them thinking that there was corrupted or invalid files once it didn't show up on the steering on this new firmware or the last release of the firmware. I do kind of wish they'd have changed the revision number from 1011 because it's going to get confusing. Especially if people look on the transmitter and they've got the problem and it's 1011 and then the firmware that fixes it is 1011. I can see how that's that's going to get a little confusing for people. But shouldn't take much longer and then we can move on to the firmware update process. I do like these little USB-C bases. There's this one and the lightweight one that I'm using at the moment. They do seem to work really well. Does make my life a lot easier. So that's got as model memories exported. Now you can go firmware update on here. I strongly advise against using Assistant to update. So for me, I'm going to close Assistant. I'm going to go back into us folder. We can see we've got the new backup and the original backup I made. So now we want to go on as transmitter and I'll just show you the problem. We've got a model memory selected, but the steering doesn't work. If I change it to another model, and this is all set up and working, steering, but throttle works fine. This is the issue I was having once you restored your model memories. But if I jump to, I think I'd got one set up. I think I reset one just to try it last time. Yeah, so if you reset it, it did work. If it was a model memory imported, it didn't. So you'd have no steering. So we need to go to System, and we need to look down for firmware update. Wait for the transmitter to restart. You'll get the detection, USB detection sound from your Windows PC. Once you've had that, we can then double click the updater software. You can see it detects your transmitter. It says ready for update. Software version is 011. Software version it's installing is 1011. So let's click this and see how we get on. The actual update of software is so much quicker than trying to do this on Assistant as well. And it does tell you what it's up to, so it's erasing the flash chip, and we're already up to 41%. I know it's not always the easiest to see these screens, but it's a far easier way of me having the transmitter and the actual screen, what I'm doing, all in one shot. We are aiming to just screen record and then do a lot of messy editing to actually bring it up and get it working. Now it's programming as flash chip, so shouldn't be too much longer. I think we're already at 90 odd %, yep. So that'll then reboot.
Welcome to Nova Pro Plus.
It's detected it on 1011, which it should be. So, nope, we don't want to set fail-safes. So, as stock, with no models restored, we do have fully functioning steering. Let's open Assistant again. So now we can go to Import, Load Model Memories. I'm going to browse back to my desktop, Assistant V3 folder, NB4 Pro. So the new one is the backup I've made from this firmware that didn't work. So just out of curiosity, I'm going to try that one first. So you can see all the models we're importing. I'm going to tick all, add. You can click on these and rearrange them. You can click reset and that'll take them all off. You can click one or two and just add them. So you can mess around with order. For me, I'm just going to select all, add. And I'm going to try and copy them all back. Now, if this works, then it doesn't matter what the backup's from. The only thing you've got to be cautious of is the backups must be from the new version of Assistant. So for me now, I'm testing the actual model memories from the firmware that didn't work. I've still got the original backup that we made before this 1011 firmware and the issue with the steering. So I can always go back to that, and I'd always advise people to do multiple backups, especially whenever there's a change or anything. They are really tiny files, and it just allows you to go back in time effectively if you lose any of your settings or anything. And it is really handy to be able to share them with like friends and family, anybody else with a transmitter, and you don't have to write all the models. You can just write one. So if you've got a really complex crawler setup and your friend buys the same transmitter, it's really handy to just be able to send that one model memory over, and you do get to choose which memory slot on the transmitter it overwrites when you do copy that one over. So yeah, it's this side of Assistant I really do like. I'd like it to be a bit quicker, but if it works, it works. At this point, I'm more impressed if it actually functions correctly. It's definitely a marked improvement over how Assistant did function. Definitely a lot quicker to open, a lot more success with it for a lot of different users. The little Lenovo Legion Go, really handy to take to track with you, especially if you want to update a friend or family's transmitter, or as I say, copy model memories over. And you can put as many different transmitters on one handheld with Assistant as you like. You can just keep backing up the model memories, create new folders or anything for them. So let's see, moment of truth, do we have steering? Nope. So we have no steering still. And if we go to a new model that I'd reset, so I think 20. So we do. So yeah, if you use the backup from this transmitter in the broken state, you'll still not have any steering. So I'm going to go back in, I'm going to go to import, I'm going to go to load, I'm going to go back to my desktop, Assistant V3. So this is the model memory backup before we made the update to the firmware that broke the model memories. So let's see if this improves it at all. So these model memories were made with this new version of Assistant on the previous version of the software before it had the steering issue. So let's see if these can be restored. And for this one, I'm going to skip this bit, waiting for it to come through. By this point, you know exactly what to expect on this. So I'll just skip this bit and get back to you when it's closer to restoring them. So that is the memories imported back, and bearing in mind these were from before it were broken. So the one that I reset, that still works. Let's see if we can go to one that was backed up previously. Yep, we got fully functioning steering on that one. Let's check another. Yep, fully functioning on that one. Yep, fully functioning on that. Don't be worried about how far my steering's turning. It's just because I've got dual rates set up on a lot of these. So the one thing I would do after you've done this firmware update and you've got your model memories back on, we can go through and go to calibration. You just want to make sure everything's calibrated. I believe part of this update, it's added the last calibration values as well.
Calibration successful.
So you do get calibration successful. And then we've got the failsafe settings. So we've now got the new failsafe settings for each model. So you can set all these up. And there is a few other things. So what we'll do, we'll just jump back and go to the release notes. So for this one, we've got added low power mode, added failsafe warnings, functionality can be enabled or disabled, pop-up window to prompt after transmitter's powered on, so you can set whether you want that or not. Race mode, so it ignores low signal alarms and low telemetry alarms. Sped up the power on period to make it quicker to boot. Modified, so TH mid and TH prop, you can now select proportions of throttle to be customized. Modified customer area of main interface, so again to allow that to be displayed. Modified failsafe functions. Modified stick calibration, yeah, so it does show your previous set. Modified low signal alarm, so you can change and configure that as well. Under telemetry settings, you've got telemetry loss feature, so you can change and modify how the sound is set up on that. And it does tell you to use latest version of Assistant to make the backups. Yeah, but if you back up from a broken memory, it won't work still. So you must use a backup of this new Assistant, but from before you updated to that firmware. It does tell you to do stick calibration, and you may need to rebind to your receivers for each one. But yeah, that's it. It looks like it all works as long as you've got a backup from before you upgraded initially to 1011. You cannot make a backup from the broken version of 1011. So this new one I'm going to delete because you'll have no steering. You do need an older backup, but from the new Assistant. That's an important one. It must be from the newer system. But yeah, shame it took a couple of attempts to get this, but yeah, Flysky, you fixed it. It all works. We now have as fully usable steering again on all his model memories. So let's wrap this one up. So that is 1011 firmware corrected and fully working on the NB4 Pro Plus. So yeah, it's safe to update now. The big caveat is you must have a backup of your model memories from the previous firmware to 1011. So whatever you were on before, you tried to update last time, and the backups must be made using the latest version of Assistant. So as long as you've got them, yep, you can recover it. If you can't and you haven't got any backups from them, the only option is to reset that model memory and set it up again, and then you'll be up and running. But yeah, if you followed my last video, you will still have the backups before this failed firmware where it got steering issue. As long as you've got them backups, you'll have no problem restoring all your model memories and full functionality to your transmitter. But thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. Hopefully you find this useful, entertaining, just like listening to my incessant ramblings. But don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.